Hello and welcome to the Moms on the Ground podcast. My name is Angela and I'm your hostess for today, sitting next to the lovely Melissa, my partner in crime.
Yes.
So guys, we're going to jump right in. This is the third part of our series on what was it? My brain is
Unified School District and the coordination that we can see Brown Act violations, which occurred at the October 18th meeting in regard to the parental notification policy and the coordination between trustees and teachers.
Please listen to episode 1 and 2 if you haven't done so already. Jumping right in, I want to say something that I didn't mention in the first one, which was a girlfriend had asked me when I was telling her this story. She was confused. She was like, "Well, wait a second. What was the need for the policy?" Go ahead. Because you're well versed in this one.
Well, I think we did mention it in episode 1 when we kind of gave an overview of what we were going to be going into in these episodes. But basically, there's a lot of pressure from legislation, not pressure and legislation that's coming from Sacramento, at a state level where bills are being passed, because there's no ability to really oppose this because of the people who are sitting in those seats. So the people who are writing the policy, they outnumber anyone that would oppose the policy. And so that is where like the parents come in is, we need to vote differently. We need to have people sitting in these seats that actually have the interests of families and children at heart. So one of the reasons that Lisa Davis wrote this policy was to support parents in that. And the reason that she wrote it was because there are a whole bunch of different bills that have been passed. One of them I did mention in episode 1, I believe. It was about, just health insurance. At 12 years old now, you as the parent do not have a right to see your child's medical records without their consent. So, even though you're paying the premium for it, that's one type of law that has set the table for some of this stuff. And that's, so this whole idea, this name calling, this stuff, where parents who are concerned about this get called extremists or bigots, or, one of the things that I want to make comment about on that is that that is a tactic that has been used throughout history
to divide us.
But, the main thing that comes to mind for me was, when you look back, for example, at World War II and the Holocaust and the things that were done to the Jewish people far in advance of them being, shipped off to concentration camps, there were many, many things, disparaging things that were said about them, posters that were made about them being unclean, many just, if you have. So I think that should always be sort of a red flag. When you hear someone calling someone else a name like extremist or hate group, or, dig into that a little bit more, because, I don't call other people who believe differently than I names like that. I have information and facts and documents that show what's going on. Let's stay up and out of this name calling thing and dismissing others because you've been told that these people are extremists. That should be the red flag that should prompt you to say, what's going on here, and dig a little deeper.
Mm-hmm. And when you're having an adult conversation, you say those words, it's bad enough. But when you're speaking to a child and you are referencing parents and using words like extremists and hate groups, you have to know that you're preying on the innocent. So with that being said, so we've got some slides I think we want to kind of dive into.
Yes. And we wanted to, to your point with that friend, we'll go into in a later podcast about some of the bills that have been passed that are alarming to parents.
Well,
And
yeah, and I think it's important just to make the comment because, again, I think the average parent is just assuming that this stuff is coming out of left field.
yeah, some parents think that or they're told that, but the reason that Lisa Davis, the trustee who wrote the parental notification policy, wrote it was because there's so much of this stuff that's coming down from the state that she truly, in an effort to have transparency with families, to give people a sense of feeling safe sending their children to school, wanted this
Yeah.
policy in place so that the parent would know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if something was going on with their children in the classroom, or any with any of these any issues, that the parents would be notified, that there's communication, that there's a respect. But as I said in our last recording, that there were 5 trustees that thought that parents should be kept in the dark. And when you read that policy, it's really crazy that you vote against it, and they're what they try to defend that with is like, well, there was already something in place. Well, um, that's not really true, because they're not at all talking about the legislation that's coming down from the state that is
Yeah.
removing, the presence of, the parents knowing what's going on. I just
And had they listened to the parents, if the parents would have had more speaking time, and let's say that bill would have passed, or that not that bill, that policy would have passed, it would have reinforced the fact that the parents in that district wanted notification. So if there was something coming down from Sacramento, you would have a leg to stand on in trying to fight, have an opposition, correct?
Correct. And one of the things that is included in the documents that I found was this picture that was taken of the crowd from like a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
And it was actually in the New York Times. And, you could see that the crowd of parents there was massive, as opposed to the other group. And, there were meetings before where, the same type of thing occurred where the public, was prevented from being able to participate in the meeting. So, had this actually been an organic situation where it was first come first serve the way that it's supposed to be, you would have heard a very different public comment taking place. I think one of the slides that's extremely important, I think it was slide number 128, and again we'll make all this available to you.
I was showing a picture of what was published when they were talking about the meeting on October 18th. It's, your perception's your reality. And a lot of people just take information off the media, major media, and they can skew it to make it look any kind of way. And this is why it's so important to get the facts down.
Yeah, and what this slide that you have up right now that you're sharing there with our listeners, is showing, the side to the left of the picture shows a big group of the public wearing white. The reason that the public wore white was in peace, not in hate. Um, they were wearing white for peace. And then you see on the right, you see a much smaller group. And those are the people who were there in opposition. And so, what we wanted to cover on this um, part of the Capo Unified Brown Act violation is the outside interference. I think there was a lot of outside interference. There was a lot of coordination. As I said in the other um, episode, there was the board president who is a trustee who violated the Brown Act by conducting serial meetings with a teacher who worked as an intermediary, who recruited other teachers as intermediaries, and then also, working in conjunction with organizations that have conflict of interest that are actually outside of our district entirely. So the slide that's up right now is this is from the LGBTQ Center of OC, and this is about Zoom training that was going to take place on October 5th. And so, there's the teachers, the GSAs, the intermediaries. In this case, they're being bombarded with information and wording. Like, if you get a chance to go through and look at all of these emails, the wording is quite interesting. Where did this thing come with the wording, forced outing? And you can see it's like parrots, like little parrots in a jungle, like repeat, it's like
Yeah.
you read it in one email and then the next person, or like that game telephone, and then the next person repeats those very words, and then you hear them coming out of the mouth of a child.
Yeah.
That is not,
It didn't just happen.
it's not, I keep saying organic, but it's not, it's not natural. The student didn't show up and use their own words to articulate, whatever it was that they were feeling. They were told a story that wasn't true. As we went through the document before, they were being told things about a policy before they had ever even seen it. They were riling these kids up. And then you see.
And may I ask, I'm going to add one thing. I actually spoke to the board when I was a kid. At our, they were trying to institute in public schools uniforms. I didn't need a group to come tell me what to say. I didn't need a group to rally me. I got a ride, I think, with my friend and her mom. We had written our own stories. I did not want to wear a uniform. I was able to articulate that on my own. I didn't need teachers to get involved because there's nothing illegal about rallying the troops to come and speak.
Well, there is.
Well, there is
when it's a teacher.
Yes. I mean,
let me just be clear here.
Yeah.
Because the difference is that if you as an individual were going to your trustee in your area, that you have a right to contact your trustee and you can rally the troops. But an agency employee, a teacher, cannot coordinate with a trustee because that person is an agency employee. They're not considered. There's an exemption where they are not considered like the general public, because you can see like why that conflict would happen, right? Because every time something would come up, they can go to these leaders at the schools and say, this is what we want to happen.
Yep.
And, especially if it was.
And I'm going to guess that you probably shouldn't do it during school hours.
Yes, school hours, that's a great point. School hours and school resources, our tax dollars were used with all this coordination through making these. And there's in the documents, there is a kid that's being pulled out of class to come and look at the policy to, this is during the school day. What's interesting is that they put it on universal. It looks like it's 6 p.m., right? But it says UTC, which is it's something like Universal Coordinated Time.
Oh, and yeah, so, my Evites always go out of that, and when I put it in my calendar, it always puts it 12 hours before or something like that.
So it's 8 hours difference. So it made it 10 a.m. And the student, so we can tell in records when it's a student, they redact the name of the student. So we can tell that that's why there's this question about one of these intermediaries named Amira Salazar. The email is shown, the name is not redacted out. This is someone who's participating in creating this slideshow. So the name is not redacted out, but she actually commented during the meeting, during the student comment portion time. So we tried to get records for this person. And again, the response back did not indicate that this person was a child or a student, as they spoke as a student during the student comment time, during the board policy 9323 thing where they're given priority. But this person spoke. But again, we're unclear, like this person we don't believe is a student because the name is not redacted out. But to this other point that I was saying, there's also another slide that shows that this kid is leaving class during third. I have a substitute anyway. So, it's going over to Kelsey Torres' class to discuss this policy.
Actually, if I remember reading that one before, it actually says, can you send it to me in an email? And the teacher's response was, why don't you just come to my classroom?
Correct.
Which there had to have been a reason why they didn't want to. It seemed like
it wasn't
diluted.
Yes. I think what it said, as if my memory serves, is that they said like, well, what do you want me to change? And that would have probably provided more of a trail of like what they were being told to put into the the presentation, to what to articulate, to students. But anyway, yes, they're using taxpayer dollars. They're using, this is during the school day when this teacher is supposed to be teaching. There's kids being pulled out of class. And then, this should make you ask the question academically, like, where are we as compared to other states? We're 50th. These kids were kept out of school during COVID much longer than other states. There's learning loss. But here we are to have these kids recruited for this meeting to speak, that that all of this time during the day, the taxpayer dollars, everything, it's all, you can see it all in the records. So it's disturbing. That other slide that you had up, this group that I mentioned, there's this LGBTQ Center of OC that's located in Santa Ana, and so which
is not affiliated with the school.
No, it's not, and it's outside It's an outside organization, but the intermediary, Kelsey Torres, even tells Krista Castellanos, the board president, that she is coordinating with this center. And then we see all of these emails where Kelsey Torres is, mostly communicating with someone named Stephanie Camacho Van Dyke, who is, I forget her role at the LGBTQ center, but she's organizing with other people. So she and the intermediary are organizing with other outside organizations. I think we have a slide on it's 118, slide number 118.
And by the way, we're saying a lot of names. When Melissa was able to do the records request, all of this is public.
Yeah, all these are public records. So you can see the name of the person on the emails, and we're going to share them on the link. So there's an email. Could you go to the one just above here, 117? Okay, so for example, you can see here that this is from Kelsey Torres to Stephanie Camacho Van Dyke. She's talking about attending and encouraging other staff to do so as well. Her GSA president is in contact with other schools in the district, doing her best to ensure we have a strong group. But I wanted to point out the second part that's circled here is from Stephanie Camacho Van Dyke from this LGBTQ Center of OC, who is telling Kelsey Torres, during the school day on a Friday at 12:04 p.m. again, that she had a meeting with Sweep California and their organizers, and they hope to arrive as early as possible to secure seating, which was the purpose for the rally, so our students and supporters could get there as early as possible, since the opposition might also try to take up more seats inside. So, she's saying she's contacted Sweep California. So I want to show you what Sweep California is. So on this 118, we have, this is a Facebook page that is about Sweep California. So it is administered by Red Wine and Blue. So they say, so what I'm going to tell you is that the Sweep California is a Democrat political organization. And so what I think is quite interesting is, Lisa Davis is up for reelection this year, and her opponent has shared on her webpage about, Lisa Davis being political, which is comedy to me, because you see these other trustees, they're working in coordination. And then this outside entity, this LGBTQ Center of OC, then enlists the help of Sweep California, which, if you go to the next slide there, Angela, you can see that this is, you can see that Red Wine and Blue, that they're talking here about banned books, and you can see that the Act Blue, it's circled over there in yellow, Act Blue charities. Okay, so that is and Secure Act Blue. So when you go to their banned bookmobile kit, you can see that this is a Democrat organization. So now we've got
a political party affiliated with an outside source reaching inside of our schools to try to make something happen.
Stack the deck against the public being heard, and exactly like manipulating.
Can you imagine if it happened in reverse?
No, but and it should never happen one way or the other, right? Because we have,
But what
we
I
are
mean is
not.
that I feel like it would get much more media attention. By the way, all of this information is in the hands of the DA already. What they do with it.
Well, it is, and we'll get to that, like what we want to do, ask parents, people in the district to do. But this is back to this point of Sweep California, is that is someone who was brought in by the LGBTQ Center of OC. I can't remember if I mentioned it, but that organization is located in Santa Ana. So what is this organization from Santa Ana, coming into our district to make sure that they, block the public out from being heard, then recruiting this Democrat organization to come. And then, and we're going to tell you in a future podcast of why there's a conflict of interest here. There's a huge conflict of interest here. And we're going to explain that in a future podcast. And so, the screen that you're showing now is board policy 9323. This is saying, that the students have priority to speak. So could you go to 128? I think that this visual, and again, all of this is linked, and I know that a lot of you are listening. So I really, really, really hope that you'll go back and look at this or listen to this. The part in yellow with the squiggly line next to it, those are all students on the first page, and then down to the yellow mark on the second page. That's where the students stop. So just, from a visual perspective, you can see.
And these are people that spoke.
Correct. And so then from the yellow mark on the second page, down, what they did is rather than first come, first serve, it was the speaker cards were handed out 1-to-1. So somebody opposed, somebody in favor, somebody opposed, somebody in favor. So you could see that this was very much, stacked against the public, and it was orchestrated. There was collaboration here for sure. And let's see, what else was I going? So, I forgot to mention to you that, one of the things that really blew me away was that, the theater club from Aliso Niguel High School had been recruited for this. So there were all of these students that, because of the workings of these teachers who are agency employees working as intermediaries, recruiting these students, they came to speak. So there are emails that show, there's, I don't know which slide it is, but I really hope that everyone will go back and look through all of these documents. But there's, it says, it gives the acronym like ANHSTC. So Aliso Niguel High School Theater Club. So the whole theater club was recruited to, speak in the student, and to take up and to exploit that board policy 9323. So this slide that is up right now, and I know again, most people are listening, not looking, but we're going to link all of these as well. But this is, an after the fact thing. So, the trustees, 5 of them voted against the parent notification policy. And again, that was, we see the coordination in the emails from Krista Castellanos, who's the board president. We see a tee up for the public comment from these other 2 trustees that are from the areas, the schools that are predominantly present for the public comment. And then we see this celebrate. So they vote against the parental notification policy, and we see this email from or it's let's see, where are we? Sorry,
Melissa Holloway.
Yeah, so it's from Kelsey Torres to another teacher, Melissa Holloway, and it says the policy was voted down 5-2. The kids are so excited. There are about 50 student speakers who took us all the way to 9:20, leaving only about 40 minutes for adults to speak. So the intention was to block out the adults from speaking. And
they spoke on something that was not in the policy.
Correct. And they were told what to say. They were given a story about what the policy was about. They were, in my view, like, this is, a psychological manipulation of a group of children. And again, when they're at school, they should be protected, most definitely protected from stuff like this. And when you look at all these documents, you will see all the coordination, the different teachers. I wanted to comment on that one teacher, though, that we did see in Dana Hills, where there was a teacher that this intermediary tried to bring into the fold, and she offered her flyer, and she offered to her sign up sheets and everything. And this particular teacher said, and I quote, I think I remember it verbatim, but she said, basically, she said, I don't feel comfortable using my position as a teacher for any political cause, even one that I am aligned with. So, I'm personally aligned. Yeah. And that's what should have taken place across the board. I think there are also a number of education code, like laws that are broken, board policy, because there in the slide presentation, there's a whole portion on ed code and board policy, and there are things written about controversial issues, and making sure that you're not presenting something one-sided. And this was most definitely one-sided. The public was prevented from being part of the decision-making process. It was through the coordination of these trustees with teachers. There was even email from Kelsey Torres, to another teacher about the union, and about, if the union was going to do something about this. And so, all of these tentacles into all of these places to take up time. So, and the reason that they did this was because it would not look right for them to vote against the parental notification policy. It would not look right for these 5 trustees to vote against it if the public was, if you heard a different.
They weren't
Yes.
behind them completely.
So they had in advance, they knew how they wanted to vote. They coordinated.
Well, and they were relying on the fact that people don't fact check, because there was an email in there from the teacher out to the students, and it had a copy of the Capo Unified policy that was up, and then a copy of a different school board policy that had different verbiage in it. It had a link to both of them, but in big bold letters it said, as you can see, they are exactly the same. And I saw that multiple times. And so they could say, well, we sent everybody the link for the policy. They could have read it, but they know darn well that most people don't. And so when you give a summary, when the summary is coming from a trusted source and it says, see, it's exactly the same, they took it for what it was, didn't fact check,
Well,
and then took away the ability for the parents to actually have a fair shot at this.
Correct. And when you hear the kids talking, like, I wrote down on YouTube, you can go to the Capo USD regular meeting from 10:18, and it starts at 2:35, and that's the beginning of the whole of that item. It's item 17B, and I think it's worth a listen to just hear what these kids had to say, because it is verbatim from these slideshows, from these flyers. And, there's even a girl that says, trust me, I read it. Like she speaks to the policy and she says, trust me, I read it. And, you think, but did you? And somebody told you what this was about. And then, there was also a comment from from a student saying, all of the people who wrote this or want this, they're over the age of 45. So what do they know anyway? And, to me, people the age of 45 or over, and I could back it up even to 25, they have a mature organism of a brain that has developed prefrontal cortex that is involved with your decision making. So, it's important to be informed.
And you don't know. And so, I mean, again, what I spoke about, the not wanting to wear a uniform in high school, I remember like 6 months later being frustrated every morning trying to figure out something to wear, especially once I got into a position where I was having to take my chore money and buy my own clothes. I was like, darn, I probably shouldn't have stood up against wearing a school uniform, right? I mean, and that is something so simple. But as adults, we need to actually be the adult in the room.
Well, and I wanted
know.
to say, so what happened after the meeting? Like there are, I think, are we still not, or can we screen share or not? Okay, there's a slide that shows like
We'll keep you guys here
the
all
remedies.
day.
Well, I just wanted them to know about the remedies because I don't like putting something out, to just rile people up and give you no solution or no action step that you can take. I feel frustration when that's done to me.
Oh, absolutely.
So a slide, I think it's 153. That one is talking about, the remedies. It's the one above that. Remedies for the Brown Act violations. So there are civil remedies. And the district, it says here that individuals or the district attorney can file civil lawsuits for the injunctive, mandatory, or declarative relief, or to void action taken in violation of the act. So that's the civil remedy part. And then there are criminal sanctions that could be enforced here. So the district attorney may seek misdemeanor penalties against a member of a body who attends a meeting where action is taken in violation of the act and where the member knew or has reason to know that the public was entitled to receive. So, there was a lot of lobbying, there was a lot of conversation, there was a lot that took place that, so I have, we touched on this earlier and I kind of wanted to say it at the end because it's the action step for parents.
Yes.
And we wanted to also make sure that we said in the beginning of this that this is not unique to Capo. There's a lot of more information out there about different districts. We have looked into other districts and see in records that this particular thing with the Brown Act, this is a case study, right?
Yes.
And so, but we see this center, when they're sending communications out, they send out communications about other districts and their board meetings and which of their trustees are friendly, to their cause. So it's being coordinated in other districts as well. But after I knew that this had happened, because I'm there, I see that that the public isn't being heard. I decided to ask for these records. So the next step was to send a letter to the district to ask that they cure and correct the Brown Act violation. I received a letter back. I sent that on November 7th. So I received a letter back from the attorney, the school district's attorney, that said, no, we didn't violate that. And, show me this evidence. And so that was on December 7th. So on December 22nd, I contacted the district attorney, the Orange County District Attorney's office, to give them, a synopsis of what went on and provided them with some documentation. So where it stands right now is that it is in their hands. I have reached out to try to find out, what's being done with it, but have not gotten a response. So I think what would be wonderful is if, parents, if you feel so inclined, to contact the Orange County District Attorney's office in the Brown Act violation area and ask that this be investigated, because you as the taxpayer, you as someone who lives in the community, you have the ability to ask that these things be investigated. So I would really encourage people to do that. The other part would be to share this podcast with your friends and to get into conversations with people that are sometimes, not comfortable to have, but like, you've got the receipts here. Like, we're giving you the receipts. We're going to put them in the link. No one can tell you that this is a conspiracy because it's in the writings, it's in the words of the people who acted in, to have this happen. So please.
How would you feel if they were sending this information to your kid about something that maybe you don't agree with? And I think that we definitely need to make this a point. This is a case study about this particular topic. But if they can make this a topic and they can talk to your kids freely, imagine what else could happen. Imagine that this was a topic that you were not comfortable with, that we called your children aside on taxpayer dollar and had a side conversation with them about. It cannot happen. I don't care what you're talking about. Right?
And I think the thing about, like, if we did that and then we had like negative sentiment behind what we were telling your child about you? You know, how
Yeah.
disruptive is this to familial relationships?
Right.
You know, and to me, the parent is always the primary educator. I understand that there are situations that may not be safe, but there are things in
Yeah.
place for kids. And I think that that's a way smaller percentage of kids than those, you know, the ones who actually spoke in the public comment about like coming out to their
Yeah.
parents, like they've come out, as you know, to your
Yeah.
point, like they were not unsafe.
We didn't violate anybody by showing those names. Those were all public record. You can watch the YouTube. They all state their names. So they had to get cleared. I think they had to apply for something, but people may be checking out at this point where, you know, but we have so much more. There's
So much
just so much more.
Well, one of the next things that we're going to be talking about is social media, because, you know, this is a social contagion. This is, you know, this whole transgenderism part, I believe, you know, this does not appear to be something that's based on attraction. It seems to be based on promotion. So we can see it being promoted at the school. Another place that this is being promoted is on social media. So we want to have discussions about that coming up.
And I guess we'll just leave it with, we don't want anybody mad at us. I mean, I want people to get involved. We don't want anybody's child to be left behind or to hurt, but we also have to protect our rights as parents.
Correct. And when you're telling a kid this, what I think is, you know, such an important point is that, you know, you're telling them that there's something wrong with how they are, you know, that they're in the wrong body. Like, you know, to me, no child is in the wrong body, you know, that they're perfect the way that they are. And to tell them something else just creates a myriad of,
and on top of that, telling no one else will understand.
Right.
Only us.
Only the teacher will understand.
Us. We're going to keep it between us. So we're going to wrap up here. Thank you guys so much for hanging in with us.
You.
If you have any questions, once you guys read the documentation, just send us a message. And we hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.